Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars shift and dance as the ship dropped out of hyperspace. The familiar hum of the engines faded to a whisper, replaced by the soft beeping of instruments coming online. After 3 months of traveling through the dark void between stars, they had finally reached their destination. "Jump complete, Captain," announced Navigation Officer Pete Williams from his station. "We are now in the Kepler 442 system." Jake nodded and stretched his arms above his head. The long journey had been worth it. This was humanity's first real attempt to explore beyond their home solar system. The Defiance was not the biggest ship humans had built, but it was tough and reliable. 200 crew members called it home, at least for now. "All systems check out fine," reported Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett over the intercom. Her voice carried the slight accent of someone who had grown up in the mining colonies of the asteroid belt. "Engines are cool, reactor is stable. We're ready for whatever comes next." Jake smiled. Lisa had been his friend for over 10 years, ever since they served together on a patrol ship near Mars. She could fix anything that broke and improve anything that worked. If Lisa said the ship was ready, then it was ready. "Communications, start the deep space scan," Jake ordered. "Let's see what this system has to offer." Communications specialist Amy Torres bent over her controls, her dark hair falling across her face as she worked. The screens around her lit up with data streams and signal analysis. "Beginning wide spectrum scan now, Captain. So far I'm not picking up any." She stopped talking suddenly. Her face went pale as she stared at her instruments. "Amy, what is it?" Jake asked, moving closer to her station. "Captain, you need to see this." Amy's voice was barely a whisper. She pressed a few buttons and the main screen lit up with a tactical display. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. The screen showed hundreds of red dots surrounding them in a perfect sphere. Each dot represented a ship, and every single one was bigger than the Defiance. "How many?" Jake asked quietly. 312 vessels, sir," reported Tactical Officer Ryan Clark. The young man's hands were already moving over his weapon controls, though Jake knew it would not do much good. "The smallest ones are twice our size." "The largest?" "Well, they're massive." Jake took a deep breath and tried to think. In all the planning for this mission, they had talked about the possibility of meeting alien life. But they had imagined small encounters, maybe a few ships or a space station. They had never dreamed of facing an entire fleet. "Are they moving?" he asked. "No, sir," Ryan replied. "They're holding position around us. Perfect formation, like they've been waiting." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the life support systems. Jake could feel the eyes of his crew on him, waiting for orders. These were good people, brave people who had volunteered to leave Earth and venture into the unknown. They deserved better than to die in their first hour among the stars. "Incoming transmission," Amy announced suddenly. It's in English, Captain. Put it on screen." The main display shifted to show the bridge of an alien ship. The creature that appeared was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that seemed to shift color in the light. Its eyes were large and yellow, and when it spoke, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. "Human vessel," the creature said in perfect English, though its voice carried a strange, hissing quality. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Collective. You have entered space controlled by the Galactic Alliance. Your primitive species has been monitored for some time." Jake stepped forward, trying to project confidence he did not feel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." The alien's expression did not change, but Jake thought he saw something like amusement in those yellow eyes. "Peace and friendship," Admiral Vextar repeated slowly. "How quaint. Your species broadcast violence and chaos across the radio waves of space. Your own planet suffers from wars, pollution, and disorder, yet you speak of peace." "We're not perfect," Jake admitted, "but we're trying to be better. We've come here to learn and explore, not to fight." "Learn?" Another alien appeared on screen, this one looking like a giant insect with multiple arms and compound eyes. "What could a primitive species like yours possibly learn from us? You have barely crawled out of your own star system." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting mad would not help his crew. "We may be young as a spacefaring species," he said carefully, "but we have something to offer. Human creativity, our different way of looking at problems, our—" "Silence," Admiral Vextar interrupted. "You will listen now. The collective has debated what to do about humanity for many years. Your species is dangerous. You think as individuals rather than as a group. You fight among yourselves and waste resources. You are a threat to galactic order." The alien leaned forward and Jake could see more creatures moving around the bridge behind him. "However, we are not without mercy," the Admiral continued. "You have two choices. First, you can surrender your ship and crew. We will take you to a processing center, where you will be educated in proper civilization. Your planet will be placed under protective quarantine until your species learns to behave." Jake felt his jaw clench. "And the second choice? Your ship will be destroyed, and your world will be cleansed to prevent the spread of human chaos to the rest of the galaxy." The connection ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Jake stared at the blank screen, processing what he had just heard. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and they were being offered slavery or death. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "they're giving us 24 hours to decide." "Why?" asked Ryan. "Why give us time at all?" Jake turned to look at his crew. Lisa had come up from engineering and was standing near the back of the bridge. Dr. Carl Peterson, the ship's scientist and anthropologist, was taking notes on his tablet. All of them were looking at him, waiting for him to somehow fix this impossible situation. "They're curious," Jake said finally. "They want to see what we'll do. Maybe they've never met a species quite like us before." "What are your orders, Captain?" Lisa asked. Jake looked around at the faces of his crew. These people had trusted him to lead them safely among the stars. He would not let them down. "We use every minute of those 24 hours, he said. "Amy, I want complete passive scans of their fleet." "Lisa, check every system twice." "Ryan, run tactical analyses on everything you can see." "Carl, study everything about these aliens." He paused and looked at each of them. "And we figure out how 200 humans can convince 300 alien ships that we deserve to exist." The next 12 hours passed like a blur of activity aboard the Defiance. Every crew member worked with quiet determination, knowing their lives depended on what they could learn about their captors. Captain Jake Morrison had barely slept, moving between stations and checking on his people. Amy Torres had been glued to her communications console, carefully analyzing every signal coming from the alien fleet. The aliens were not trying to hide their transmissions, which told Jake they either trusted their technology completely or did not care if humans could understand them. "Captain, they want to talk again," Amy announced from her station. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and nodded. "Put them through." The main screen lit up, but this time it showed not just Admiral Vextar, but several other alien beings. Jake recognized the insect-like creature from before, but there were others he had not seen. One looked like it was made of pure energy, glowing and shifting constantly. Another appeared to be some kind of fish person, with gills and large, dark eyes. "Human Captain Morrison," Admiral Vextar began, "we have decided to conduct a proper evaluation of your species before making our final decision. You will answer our questions truthfully." "We'll cooperate," Jake replied, though he did not like the tone the alien was using. The insect creature moved forward, its compound eyes reflecting the light in strange patterns. "I am Hive Queen Zakath. My species achieved perfect unity 3,000 years ago. We share one mind, one purpose. How can your species function when every individual thinks different thoughts?" Dr. Carl Peterson stepped up beside Jake. The older man had spent his career studying human cultures and societies. If anyone could handle these questions, it would be Carl. "Individual thinking is our strength," Carl explained patiently. "When we face a problem, we approach it from many different angles. One person might see something others miss. We combine our different ideas to find better solutions." The insect queen made a sound that might have been laughter, though it sounded more like clicking and buzzing, chaos and confusion. "Our unity allows us to act without hesitation or doubt. We have conquered 12 star systems because we think as one. But what happens when your one way of thinking is wrong?" Carl asked. "What if there's a problem that requires a completely new approach?" The aliens exchanged glances and Jake noticed they seemed uncomfortable with the question. The energy being spoke next, its voice sounding like electronic music. "I am known as Radiant 7. My people have existed for 50,000 years. We have achieved perfect logic and efficiency. Your species wastes enormous resources on art, music, and entertainment. These things serve no practical purpose." Jake felt a surge of anger, but Carl placed a gentle hand on his arm. Those things you call wasteful are what make us human, Carl said. Art helps us understand ourselves and our place in the universe. Music brings us together and helps us express emotions we cannot put into words. Entertainment lets us explore ideas and possibilities in safe ways. Emotions, the fish-like alien said, speaking for the first time. Its voice bubbled like water. I am Lord Deepcurrent of the Oceanic Realm. My people eliminated emotional responses millennia ago. They interfere with rational decision-making. How do you know what's worth fighting for without emotions? Carl asked. Logic can tell you how to do something, but emotions tell you what's worth doing. Jake watched the aliens carefully as Carl spoke. He could see they were becoming frustrated with the answers they were getting. These were beings who had spent thousands of years convinced that their way was the only right way. Now they were meeting creatures who did everything differently and somehow made it work. Your technology is primitive, Admiral Vextar said, changing the subject. Your fastest ships move slower than our cargo vessels. Your weapons are crude. Your computers are barely more advanced than mechanical calculators. How do you expect to survive among civilized species? This time Jake answered. We may not have the most advanced technology, but we know how to use what we have. We build things to last and we learn to fix them when they break. We don't need perfect technology if we have the skills to make it work. Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett had been listening from the back of the bridge, and she stepped forward now. If I may, Captain, she said, then looked directly at the aliens. I've been scanning your ships for the past 12 hours. Your technology is impressive, but it's also extremely complicated. What happens when something breaks and you don't have a repair facility nearby? Our technology does not break, the Insect Queen said with obvious pride. Everything breaks eventually, Lisa replied with a slight smile. The question is whether you can fix it when it does. The aliens seemed to consider this for a moment, but Admiral Vextar quickly regained control of the conversation. Your species fights constant wars among yourselves, he said accusingly. Your own planet is divided into hundreds of different governments that cannot agree on anything. You have weapons capable of destroying your entire world. This proves you are too dangerous to be allowed to spread to other worlds. Carl nodded thoughtfully. You're right that we have conflicts. But those conflicts have also taught us important lessons. We've learned that different people can have different ideas and still work together. We've learned that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. Impossible, Lord Deepcurrent gurgled. Unity requires conformity. Division leads to chaos and war. Sometimes, Carl admitted. But division also leads to innovation and growth. When people disagree, they have to find new ways to solve problems. When they compete, they push each other to be better. Jake could see that the aliens were not convinced. They had lived for thousands of years in societies where everyone thought the same way, where conflict was eliminated by making everyone identical. The idea that disagreement could be helpful was completely foreign to them. We have heard enough, Admiral Vextar announced. Your answers confirm what we suspected. Humans are chaotic, unpredictable, and dangerous. You represent everything that threatens galactic order. The alien leaned forward, his yellow eyes cold and calculating. However, you are also clearly primitive and weak. Your single ship poses no threat to our fleet. Therefore, we have decided to make an example of you. We will disable your vessel with minimum force and take your crew for processing. Your planet will be monitored more closely and any future human ships will be turned back. Jake felt his heart sink. They had tried to show the aliens that humanity had value, that they deserved a chance to join the galactic community. Instead, they had only convinced their captors that humans were too dangerous to be allowed freedom and too weak to defend themselves. We will begin the capture operation in 1 hour, the Admiral continued. Do not attempt to resist. Any hostile action will result in the immediate destruction of your ship. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Well, Lisa said after a long moment, that could have gone better. Jake looked around at his crew. These brave people had followed him across the galaxy, and now they were going to pay the price for humanity's first attempt to reach the stars. Captain, Ryan Clark said quietly from his tactical station, I've been running those analyses you wanted. I think I found something interesting about their fleet formations. Jake walked over to Ryan's station, hoping against hope that his tactical officer had found something they could use. Show me, he said. As Ryan began explaining what he had discovered, Jake felt a small spark of hope ignite in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, they were not as helpless as the aliens believed. The next hour would determine whether humanity earned its place among the stars or disappeared forever. The Collective Council chamber aboard Admiral Vextar's flagship was a massive space filled with representatives from 12 different species. Holographic displays showed detailed analyses of the human ship and crew, while the various alien leaders discussed what they had learned. "The evaluation is complete," Admiral Vextar announced to the assembled beings. "The humans have confirmed every one of our predictions about their species." Hive Queen Zaxth clicked her mandibles together in what passed for agreement among her kind. Chaotic individual thinking, emotional decision-making, primitive technology. They are everything we have worked to eliminate from civilized society. The energy being called Radiant 7 pulsed with colors that indicated satisfaction. Their answers to our questions proved they have no understanding of proper order or efficiency. They actually believe that disagreement and conflict are beneficial. Lord Deepcurrent's gills fluttered as he spoke. Most disturbing is their attachment to useless activities like art and music. Resources that could be used for advancement are wasted on emotional expression. Other council members nodded, or made their species equivalent gestures of agreement. To them, the case was clear. Humanity represented everything that was wrong with primitive species. However, Admiral Vextar continued, "We must also acknowledge what our tactical analysis has revealed. The human ship is small and poorly armed. Their entire crew numbers only 200 beings. Their technology is centuries behind our most basic systems." A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. Commander Thexvel, Vextar's second-in-command, gestured toward the tactical displays. "Our computer models indicate that a single patrol vessel could disable the human ship without difficulty. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields, and their engines cannot outrun even our slowest vessels." "Precisely," Admiral Vextar agreed. "This makes our decision simple. We will demonstrate the futility of human resistance while showing the galaxy what happens to species that threaten galactic order." The Admiral's image appeared on screens throughout the massive fleet. "All vessels, this is Admiral Vextar. The human evaluation is complete. They have been classified as a chaotic primitive species, requiring immediate containment. The patrol vessel Dominance will disable their ship and capture the crew. All other vessels will maintain position and observe." Captain Kellixmore of the patrol ship Dominance received the order with pride. His vessel was one of the newer ships in the fleet, equipped with the latest ion cannons and shield technology. The mission would be simple and quick. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, the human crew was putting the finishing touches on their desperate plan. "The power routing is complete," Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett reported from the engine room. "I've managed to redirect energy from life support, gravity control, and even the coffee makers. We'll have about 10 minutes of maximum power before the reactor overloads." Captain Jake Morrison nodded grimly. 10 minutes was not much time, but it might be enough. "Ryan, what's the status on our modifications?" he asked. Tactical Officer Ryan Clark looked up from his weapons console, sweat beading on his forehead. "The railguns have been recalibrated for maximum velocity. We've loaded every nuclear warhead we have into the missile tubes. The plasma cutters from the repair bay have been jury-rigged as close-range weapons. And the navigation system?" Navigation Officer Pete Williams wiped his hands on his uniform. "I've programmed 17 different emergency jump coordinates. Random directions, maximum distance our fuel will allow. If we survive the next few minutes, we can be gone before they know what happened." Jake looked around at his crew. In the past hour, they had transformed their exploration vessel into something resembling a warship. It was not much compared to the alien fleet surrounding them, but it was the best they could do. "Amy, what are you picking up from their communications?" he asked. Communications Specialist Amy Torres shook her head. "They're not even trying to encrypt their signals, Captain. It's like they don't consider us worth the effort. One ship is moving toward us. Designation appears to be the Dominance. The rest are just watching." Dr. Carl Peterson looked up from his tablet, where he had been analyzing everything they had learned about the aliens. "Captain, I think their biggest weakness is overconfidence. They've been the dominant force in this galaxy for so long that they can't imagine anyone challenging them effectively." "That's what we're counting on," Jake replied. The main screen showed the alien patrol vessel approaching. It was 3 times the size of the Defiance, with weapons that could probably destroy them with a single shot. But Jake had noticed something during his conversation with Admiral Vextar. The aliens thought like generals, not like fighters. They relied on overwhelming superiority rather than tactical innovation. Incoming transmission from the approaching vessel, Amy announced. Put it through. A new alien appeared on screen, similar to Admiral Vextar but younger looking. Human vessel, this is Captain Kelksmore of the patrol ship Dominance. You will shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your ship. Jake stepped forward, trying to project a confidence he did not feel. This is Captain Morrison. We came here peacefully, seeking friendship and cooperation. We don't want to fight. Your desires are irrelevant, the alien captain replied coldly. You will surrender now. And if we refuse? Captain Kelksmore's expression did not change. Then you will be destroyed as an example to your species. The choice is yours. Jake looked back at his crew, then returned his attention to the screen. In that case, Captain, let me give you a piece of human wisdom. We came in peace, but we won't leave in pieces. The alien looked confused by the statement, which was exactly what Jake had hoped for. Lisa, are you ready? He called out. Reactor is at maximum safe output, Captain, came the reply over the intercom. Standing by to push it past the red line. Ryan, weapon status? All systems armed and ready, sir. Targeting solutions locked in. Pete, navigation. Jump coordinates programmed and ready, Captain. Say the word and we're gone. Jake took a deep breath and looked one more time at the alien fleet surrounding them. In a few moments, they would either prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars or they would die trying. All hands. This is the captain, he announced over the ship's intercom. In 60 seconds, we're going to show these aliens that humans don't give up without a fight. Whatever happens, remember that we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who will come after us. He turned to his crew and smiled. Let's give them something to remember us by. The alien patrol ship Dominance moved closer, its captain confident in an easy victory. Captain Kelksmore had disabled dozens of primitive vessels over the years. This would be no different. He was about to discover just how wrong he could be. Captain Kelksmore of the patrol vessel Dominance watched the human ship with the bored confidence of someone who had performed this task hundreds of times before. Primitive species always made the same mistakes. They either surrendered immediately or made futile gestures of defiance before being easily overwhelmed. Weapons officer, prepare ion cannons for minimum power discharge, he ordered. We want to disable their engines without destroying the ship. The Council wants prisoners for study. Ion cannons charging, Captain, came the reply. Target locked on their engine section. Kelksmore settled back in his command chair. In 30 seconds, this tedious business would be finished, and he could return to his regular patrol duties. The humans had shown some interesting verbal defiance, but that would not help them against superior Zephyrian technology. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien ship approach on his tactical display. The massive vessel was moving slowly, confidently, like a predator that knew its prey had nowhere to run. Distance to target? He asked quietly. 50,000 kilometers in closing, Ryan Clark reported from his tactical station. Their weapons are charging, but they're taking their time about it. Perfect, Jake murmured. The aliens were doing exactly what he had hoped they would do, treating this like a routine operation instead of a real fight. Lisa, take us to combat power, he ordered. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett pushed the reactor controls past their safety limits. The Defiance shuddered as power surged through systems that had never been designed to handle such massive energy flows. Warning lights flashed throughout the ship, and the low hum of the engines rose to a deep roar. Reactor at 150% of normal output, Lisa's voice crackled over the intercom. Hull stress is rising, but we're holding together. Ryan, are you ready? All weapon systems show green, Captain. Targeting computer has locked onto 17 critical points on their hull. Jake looked at the alien ship one more time. It was beautiful in its own way, sleek and powerful, built by a civilization that had mastered space travel when humans were still learning to make fire. In a fair fight, the Dominance would destroy them, without breaking a sweat. Good thing Jake had no intention of fighting fair. Execute attack pattern. Morrison 1, he commanded. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human ship did something that no civilized species had ever attempted. It charged directly at the larger vessel while spinning like a corkscrew. What are they doing? Captain Kelksmore demanded as his sensors tried to track the wildly maneuvering human ship. The Defiance was rotating on 3 different axes simultaneously, while accelerating directly toward the Dominance. I don't know, sir," his tactical officer replied, confusion clear in his voice. "Their flight pattern makes no sense. No species fights like this. The rotation was making it impossible for the Dominance's targeting computers to get a solid lock on the human ship. The Zephyrian weapons were designed to engage targets that followed predictable flight paths, not vessels that seemed to be tumbling randomly through space while somehow maintaining a collision course. Fire anyway," Kelixmore shouted. "Stop them before they reach us." Blue beams of energy lanced out from the alien ship, but the humans' impossible spinning motion carried them through gaps in the fire pattern that should not have existed. It was like trying to hit a coin that someone had flipped while it was also rolling down a hill. 20,000 kilometers and closing fast, Ryan reported, his hands dancing over his controls. Now entering our effective weapons range. The Defiance suddenly stopped spinning and opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked toward the alien ship, followed immediately by railgun rounds moving at 20% of light speed. The plasma cutters, designed for cutting through asteroid rock, carved bright lines across the enemy's shields. Captain Kelixmore watched in disbelief as his tactical display lit up with incoming weapons. These were not the crude projectiles he had expected from a primitive species. The missiles were following completely random flight paths, making them almost impossible to intercept. The railgun rounds were moving so fast that his shields barely had time to react. "Shields down to 60%, his engineer reported. "How is this possible?" Their technology readings showed primitive chemical rockets and simple kinetic weapons. What the alien had not understood was that humans did not just build weapons. They modified them, improved them, and used them in ways their designers had never imagined. The nuclear missiles had been reprogrammed to follow flight patterns inspired by Earth insects and birds. The railgun rounds were made from depleted uranium and accelerated by magnetic fields powered directly from the ship's reactor. "Return fire," Kelixmore ordered desperately. "All weapons maximum power." The Dominance unleashed its full arsenal at the approaching human ship. Energy beams that could melt through a kilometer of solid rock reached out toward the Defiance. But Jake Morrison had studied the alien weapon signatures for 12 hours. He knew exactly when they would fire and where they would aim. "Evasive maneuver Delta," he shouted. The Defiance dropped suddenly, diving below the alien ship while rolling to port. The energy beams passed harmlessly through the space where they had been just seconds before. "Impossible," Captain Kelixmore whispered. "They predicted our firing pattern. The human ship was now less than 5,000 kilometers away and still accelerating. At this range, the aliens could see the details of the human vessel clearly. What they saw confused them even more. The ship was covered with improvised armor made from cargo containers, and weapons that looked like they had been built in a repair shop. "Sir, their ship looks like it was assembled by scavengers," the tactical officer reported. "I've never seen such crude modifications." But those crude modifications were working. The improvised armor was deflecting energy blasts that should have penetrated easily. The scavenged weapons were hitting with devastating accuracy. "Shields down to 20%, engineering reported. "We're losing power to main weapons." Jake Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the alien ship's shields flicker and weaken. "Ryan, prepare for close-range assault. Amy, open a channel to the enemy ship." The main screen showed Captain Kelixmore's bridge, and Jake could see the panic in the alien's eyes. "This is Captain Morrison," Jake said calmly. "You wanted to see how primitive humans fight. Are you learning anything useful?" Before the alien could respond, the Defiance unleashed its final attack. The plasma cutters, now less than 1,000 kilometers from their target, sliced through the weakened shields like they were cutting through paper. The last of the nuclear missiles detonated against the Dominance's hull, sending shockwaves through the entire ship. "Critical damage to main power," came the desperate report from the alien engineering section. "Shields are down. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Captain Kelixmore stared at his tactical display in shock. His advanced warship, equipped with weapons and defenses that had taken his people centuries to develop, was being destroyed by a ship that looked like it had been built in someone's backyard. "How?" he whispered. Jake Morrison heard the question and decided to answer it. "You spent thousands of years perfecting your technology," he said. "We spent our whole history learning how to fight with whatever we could find. You built a beautiful ship, Captain. We built a weapon." The final railgun salvo tore through the Dominance's hull, and the great ship's lights began to flicker and die. Across the alien fleet, 300 ships watched in stunned silence as their patrol vessel was destroyed by a single, primitive human ship. For the first time in galactic history, the collective's superiority had been challenged and found wanting. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical displays, trying to process what he had just witnessed. The impossible had happened. A species they had classified as harmless primitives had just destroyed one of their warships. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "the human ship is hailing us." Jake Morrison's face appeared on screens throughout the alien fleet. His ship was damaged and smoking, but still very much intact and operational. "Admiral Vextar," he said, "I believe we need to talk." The silence that followed the destruction of the Dominance was unlike anything the galaxy had experienced in over 1,000 years. 300 alien warships, representing the most advanced military force in known space, hung motionless around a single human vessel that should have been nothing more than scrap metal and debris. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed the impossible truth. The patrol ship Dominance, equipped with shields that could withstand the fury of a small star, and weapons that could crack a moon in half, was gone. In its place was a field of twisted metal and fading energy signatures. "Damage assessment," he ordered quietly. Commander Thexaval consulted his instruments with shaking hands. "The Dominance is completely destroyed, Admiral. All hands lost. The human vessel shows moderate damage but remains fully operational." Around the bridge, alien officers who had served for centuries without experiencing defeat struggled to understand what they had witnessed. The humans had not used some secret superweapon or advanced technology. They had won with tactics that no civilized species would ever consider. "Sir," the communications officer said hesitantly, "the human ship is requesting to speak with you." Vextar straightened his uniform and tried to regain some measure of composure. "Open the channel." Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the main screen, and Vextar was surprised to see that the human looked tired rather than triumphant. Behind him, the bridge of the Defiance showed signs of battle damage, with sparks still falling from damaged control panels and crew members working frantically to repair systems. "Admiral Vextar," Jake said calmly, "I think we need to reconsider our earlier conversation." Across the fleet, alien commanders watched and listened as their absolute certainty about the nature of the universe began to crumble. How had these primitive creatures defeated technology that had dominated the galaxy for millennia? On the bridge of the science vessel Infinite Wisdom, Hive Queen Zacht clicked her mandibles nervously as she reviewed the battle data. Her species had achieved perfect unity by eliminating individual thought, but now she was seeing the results of what individual creativity could accomplish. "The human tactics make no logical sense," she transmitted to the fleet commanders. "No two moves followed predictable patterns. How can a species function when every individual thinks differently?" Lord Deepcurrent, watching from his water-filled bridge, was equally disturbed. They displayed emotions throughout the battle: anger, determination, even what appeared to be joy. According to our understanding, emotions should have impaired their performance. Instead, they seemed to fight better because of them. The energy being called Radiant 7 pulsed with confused colors. Their technology is still primitive by our standards, yet they achieved results our most advanced systems could not match. "How is this possible?" Admiral Vextar raised a hand for silence among the fleet commanders. On the screen, the human captain was still waiting patiently for a response. "Captain Morrison," Vextar said finally, "explain to me how your primitive vessel destroyed one of our most advanced ships." Jake smiled slightly. "With respect, Admiral, you're asking the wrong question. You want to know how we won? What you should be asking is why we won." The alien admiral's yellow eyes narrowed. "Very well. Why did you win?" "Because you expected us to fight like you do," Jake replied. "Your ships are designed to engage in formal combat with predictable tactics and conventional weapons. You've become so advanced that you've forgotten how to adapt when something unexpected happens." Dr. Carl Peterson stepped up beside Jake and addressed the alien fleet directly. "Admiral, your species and the others in your collective have achieved remarkable things. You've eliminated war among yourselves, created stable societies, and built technology we can barely comprehend. But in doing so, you've also eliminated the very things that made those achievements possible in the first place." "Explain," Vextar demanded. "Innovation comes from necessity," Carl continued. "When everything works perfectly, there's no need to find new solutions. When everyone thinks the same way, There's no one to challenge assumptions. You've created paradise, but paradise doesn't teach you how to fight. The alien commanders exchanged glances, and Jake could see uncertainty in their expressions for the first time. We, on the other hand, Jake added, have spent our entire history fighting each other, fighting our environment, fighting the limitations of our technology. Every problem we've ever faced, we've had to solve with whatever we could find and however we could think of to use it. Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I've got the long-range communications array back online. We're receiving transmissions from Earth. What are they saying? Jake asked. They want to know if we're all right, sir. Apparently, they've been tracking some unusual energy signatures in this direction. Jake turned back to the alien fleet. Admiral, while we've been talking, my government has been monitoring our situation. Right now, Earth knows exactly where we are and that we're surrounded by hostile vessels. Admiral Vexitar felt a chill run through his scaled hide. Are you threatening us? Not at all, Jake replied. I'm offering you a choice just like you offered us. But first let me tell you what that choice really means. Jake gestured toward the debris field that had once been the Dominance. That ship you sent to capture us was one vessel out of your fleet of 300. But Earth has been building ships for this mission for over 5 years. We have 200 vessels either completed or under construction, and every one of them is crewed by humans who think differently, fight differently, and solve problems differently. The implications of this statement sent shockwaves through the alien commanders. If one human ship could destroy a collective patrol vessel, what could 200 do? But more importantly, Jake continued, those ships are just the beginning. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. You've given us the greatest necessity we've ever faced, the need to defend our entire species. Do you really want to find out what we'll invent to do that? Admiral Vexitar considered the humans' words. The collective had ruled the galaxy through overwhelming technological superiority for over 1,000 years. But superiority meant nothing if it could be defeated by innovation and unpredictability. What do you propose? He asked finally. Dr. Carl Peterson stepped forward. We propose exactly what we came here for. Cooperation and mutual respect. We're not asking to rule anything or conquer anyone. We just want the chance to exist and grow and contribute what we can to galactic civilization. And what can you contribute? Hive Queen Zakth asked skeptically. Jake smiled. The same thing we just demonstrated. When your perfect technology meets a problem it can't solve, when your unified thinking encounters something it can't understand, you can call us. We're very good at solving impossible problems. The alien fleet commanders spent the next hour in heated debate. Some argued for immediate attack before the humans could bring reinforcements. Others pointed out that if 200 human ships were really on the way, a battle would be catastrophic for both sides. Finally, Admiral Vexitar made his decision. Captain Morrison, the Collective Council has reached a conclusion. We will offer humanity probationary membership in the Galactic Alliance. You will be granted access to standard trade routes and communication networks. In return, you will agree to certain limitations on territorial expansion and weapons development. Jake considered the offer carefully. It was not everything they had hoped for, but it was infinitely better than extinction. We accept, Admiral, but with one condition, which is, next time you want to evaluate a species, try talking to them first instead of threatening to destroy them. You might be surprised by what you learn. Admiral Vexitar actually smiled at that, showing rows of sharp teeth that looked slightly less threatening than before. Agreed, Captain Morrison. Perhaps it is time the galaxy learned some new ways of thinking. As the alien fleet began to disperse, Jake looked around at his crew. They had left Earth as explorers, but they were returning as ambassadors for their entire species. Amy, send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we're coming home and we're not coming alone. The UES Defiance turned toward home, escorted by a small formation of alien vessels that were no longer enemies. Behind them, the rest of the collective fleet began the long journey back to their home worlds, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but by proving that sometimes the most important question is not how advanced you are, but how creatively you can think when everything depends on finding a new answer. In the years that followed, human ships would become a common sight in galactic space. They were usually smaller and less elegant than their alien counterparts, but they had earned something that technology alone could never provide: respect. and whenever the galaxy faced a problem that conventional wisdom could not solve, they knew who to call.